It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It's the first weekend in June. It's the Jill on Money show, and we are delighted that you are joining us today. Here we go. I don't know about you guys, but I love these weekends because I finally feel like, it's a weekend and we can do normal things, which is fantastic. Very happy about that. Someone told me that it's going to be a very rainy June in the Northeast. I don't know what to say about that, except that it is the most boring thing is to talk about the weather, and the second most boring thing is to talk about traffic. So let's move on to you and your financial life. If you've got a question, if you have something going on in your financial life, please give us a holler. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. It's askjill@jillonmoney.com. And if you're on our website, maybe you're perusing around, checking out some of the content that's put up there constantly, all you need to do is click the contact button and we'll get your note. See how easy it is? Very, very easy. And I think it's been an interesting time, though, Mark, because I think a lot of folks kind of getting back into the workflow, have concerns around what's going to happen in their work careers as they move forward. This graduation season, new kids coming into the labor force, shortage of workers coming up. In the second hour today, we're going to have a small business focus in the second hour. If you work for a small company, if you own a small company, doesn't matter. If you're just interested in how people navigate these crazy times, stay tuned. The second hour is going to be fantastic. Friend of the show, Michael Goodman, will be here sharing his experience, and I think you'll really enjoy that. What else can I tell you? Well, you got another quarterly tax coming up for those of you who had to do it back in April and then filed a month later, and now all of a sudden it's quarterly tax season. You're writing those checks out. Are you sending those checks electronically? If you are thinking about taxes, if you're thinking about investments, anything like that, maybe you want another set of eyes on your situation. I'm not talking about my eyes or Mark's eyes. Maybe you want to start thinking about getting a different perspective on your financial life from a certified financial planner. That would be very smart of you. This show is sponsored by a certified financial planning company called Facet Wealth. Facet Wealth provides advice and planning to pretty much anyone. It's kind of cool because they charge a flat fee. That is miraculous sometimes in the industry. You know what it's going to be. Here's how much money it's going to cost you to work with this firm. That's it. It's not a percentage of assets under management. It's a fee. That's it. And they provide conflict-free financial planning. When I say CFP, a certified financial planner, the other part of that, those folks, meaning me and Mark as well, because we're both certified financial planners, we're all held to something called the fiduciary standard. And that means the advice that we provide, if you're especially in the business, it has to be in the interest of the client first. And that's what is going on at Facet Wealth. They do goal-based financial planning from dedicated advisors who have to put your interest first. So that's kind of cool. No wealth or account minimums. Check out facetwealth.com. Here we go. Let's do some emails right now. Larry writes, what should I do with an old universal life policy that I no longer need? Okay, here we go. Help me, Jill and Mark. Please tell me what to do. Here's a background. Larry writes, I'm married. We're both 68. We retired 2 years ago. 6 grown kids. And Mark, all 6 of them are doing well financially. How about that? Mark says, what are the odds of that? It's so true. He says, we can comfortably live on $50,000 a year. Oh, that's amazing. My wife has a $40,000 pension, no survivor benefit. So if you look in their Social Security benefits, $22,000 total. So $40,000 for the pension, $22,000 from Social Security. He's claiming half of hers. He says at age 70, he's going to apply for his own Social Security benefit of $40,000, and his wife's benefit will be $15,000. So they're set, totally set. Their home, they own it outright, 500 grand. He also says they own their cars and toys outright. I wonder what the toys are. We are not currently spending any savings or investments. In fact, they're net savers. How about that, Mark? Late 60s net savers. These numbers are amazing. $465,000 in savings, CDs, and brokerage accounts. Wow. $265,000 in Roth IRAs, $1 million in traditional IRAs. They're also doing what Mark loves the most, Roth conversions. They're maxing out their conversions to stay under the 12% federal marginal tax rate. Okay. Here comes the issue. I purchased an $81,000 universal life policy when I was 31 years old. Premium I pay is $1,000 annually. They charge a 5% expense charge. Oof. It's got $27,000 of cash value. Pays a 4% guaranteed interest rate on the cash value. The annual premium has been covering the insurance cost, but it's soon going to fall short. Insurance costs will begin to chip away at the cash value. The policy is projected to lapse in 10 years when I'm 78. He says the insurance company doesn't have any annuity options available. One option would be to decrease the death benefit to $40,000 and pay into the policy the maximum allowed amount of $48,000 to earn the 4% guarantee. Another option, cash out the policy, invest the proceeds into our brokerage account. Any other ideas on what I should do? Thanks in advance, Larry from Washington State. Okay. Well, isn't this a great lesson, Mark, in how crappy these policies are? Yeah. So it's where Mark says he's had it all those years. And so he's 68 now. He bought it when he was 31. All right. So 37 years of an $81,000 policy has $27,000 of cash value. The good news is I am not sure, but I'm guessing that the amount that they've paid in is probably more than the cash value. Why is that important? Because a weird quirk of insurance policies is that if the amount of the cash value is worth more than what you paid in, there is an income tax liability if you cash it out. I would still cash it out anyway. So here's the deal. Cash it out. You're done. You don't need it. You got more money than you need. So what I would suggest is before you cash it out, call the insurance company. Just say, hey, I'm going to cash this out. I want to make sure that I don't have any tax liability. If there is a tax liability, big deal, pay it. Get out of this thing. Don't look back. Larry, congratulations, because frankly, you're in fantastic shape. And you and your wife deserve to be happy and enjoy all that money that you've accumulated. And, I guess you'll share it with your 6 kids. You've done a great job, but let's get rid of that policy. Oh, God. It's funny. I keep waiting for there to be some sort of revolution or evolution in insurance. It just has not happened fast enough. So if you've got an insurance question, let us know. It's Jill on Money. All you need to do is send an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com, and we will be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, give us a holler. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Don't forget to tell us if you want to come on the air. That is what Anu did. She is on the line from Atlanta. Hi, Anu. What can we do for you?
I had some questions for you about some future planning.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How old are you?
Okay, so I'm 43 and I'm single and I own a condo. Basically, I own my home, but I also own a rental condo. It's a place that I used to live and I decided to rent it out a couple of years ago, but I'm hoping to sell it this year. And if I sell it, I probably will get about 100K. That is like 100,000. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with that money.
Okay, one question for you. When you say $100,000 after selling the rental, is that after you've paid the tax that's due? Because I imagine you've made money on this, right?
To be honest, I haven't made a ton of money, but I basically broken even, which is okay with me. And that's
Okay.
partly why I want to sell it.
Okay, got it. How much is your current condo worth?
I bought it for $270.
Okay. Is there a mortgage outstanding on that?
Yeah, I put down 20%.
Okay. 43. How much money do you make a year and what do you do?
So I make about 145 and I work for a company doing technology.
Do you have a retirement plan through the company?
Yeah, I get a 401k.
And do you max that out?
Yeah, I max it out every year and the employer provides 11% of my salary.
That's amazing. So you're putting 19.5 away and then on top of that, the employer is putting 11% of your salary. So whatever, the 15 grand or so. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. And I also hope that maybe this year I might get a raise. So I'm hoping it also increases.
That's fantastic. How much money is in the 401k right now?
Right now I have about 200.
200,000. Okay, great. And is this a place where you think you're going to stay? I mean, like you have confidence that your salary and stuff, you said, you might make more. So it sounds like you're doing well. Life's good right now.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty upwardly mobile. So I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Okay, great. Tell me a little bit more about other stuff that you have saved. So you've got 200 in your current 401k. What else is there?
So I also have a rollover from a previous employer and that has about 240.
Is there any reason why that rollover should go into the has the 401k plan that you have right now?
Well, it's very good. I decided not to roll over together in part because I started contributing some non-employer funds to my rollover. And so I'm a little worried about commingling.
Okay. Very smart. Okay. I'm on track. Okay. So 200 in the current 401k, 240 in the rollover. What else do you have?
So then I also have a Roth IRA and that one has about 182.
Are you getting phased out of the Roth? Let's see. Yeah, you're done pretty well. Are you doing pre-tax on your current 401k?
Pre-tax on my 401k. Yeah, it has a Roth option. But my advisor told me to do something interesting. He said, don't contribute my Roth in the 401k because he said instead do a end of year transfer. So in other words, last year for $35,000, I put pre-tax money into my Roth IRA and I paid taxes on that.
Wait a minute. You put pre-tax money into your Roth. You mean post-tax money, right?
Sorry, post-tax.
Yeah, got it. Okay, got it. So 200 in the 401k, 240 in the rollover, 180 in the Roth. What else do you have outstanding? What's going on in the sort of other money investment stuff?
So I also have a brokerage account and that has about 255.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, actually that account, I pretty aggressively put money in there. So about $2,000 every month if I can.
Is there anything else? I presume just because you're such a big saver, you've got your emergency reserve, right?
Yeah. So I have about 30,000 in emergency reserve, and then separately I have about 80,000 in a investment account, and this I just have just in case I need some emergency money or for a longer term plan.
You're socking away a lot of money, and I have a sense, mostly because you already sent us an email and I know this already, that you have a larger game plan that's afoot. Tell us about that plan.
Yeah, I do. So I have two real plans, Jill. So one is I would love to retire by the end of my 50s, so about 58 if possible. And my goal is not to stop working like I know you always say, but my goal is to shift gears. Basically, I want to do something creative and fun, and I want to do some kind of creative professional endeavors. The second goal I have is that right now I'm living in a fairly low cost area and it's very nice. It's very close to family and friends. But ultimately, I think I would really like to be in a more expensive area. And I say that because the places that I'm interested in typically are very expensive. And I assume that the cost of living is just going to get higher.
Where are you thinking about and why?
Either somewhere in California or somewhere in New England. And what I mean by New England is either, Boston, New York City, Providence. These are areas that I know are very beautiful, but also the cost of living has gone up quite a bit. And the reason I'm interested is because I have lots of connections there and I just think it would be a lot of fun.
I spent 10 years in New England. It is crazy there. I mean, the people are very weird. I'm just going to say this right now for all my New Englanders listening. Bad winters, Just saying, bad winters. And people are a little strange. They sort of are quiet and they can be tough. But, in New York, we want you to move to New York. That's it. We're going to be the rallying cry that you should move to New York. Come to New York City. We'd love to have you, Anu. Really. Okay. I invite you to try this. It is the center of the universe, and at least for us. All right. So I presume you said you've got an advisor you work with and you sound very focused. I presume that when you ran your retirement numbers, the 58 kind of works for you?
Well, yes, of course. It means that I'm going to be living, not an extravagant lifestyle, which I don't need to do. Right. But, I'm coming close, I would say.
Okay. The idea, look, I never have a problem when people say, hey, I want to do something totally different, or at least have the option to do something different when I'm 58. I was just talking to a very good friend of mine from work, and he's 58, 59. And when I first met him 10 years ago, he said he wanted to be done by the time he was 56. And every year he keeps working. I said, what happened to the plan? He goes, I don't know. I keep moving the goalposts because, it's actually not bad working when you don't really have to work. So I presume that there is like an opportunity where you could downshift, but hey, look, maybe you got to 58, or maybe there's the interim years, some different things happen for you. Okay, so if you're on track to do that, the idea of moving into the higher cost area, of course, blows this up a little bit, right? Because if you're going from Atlanta, where you can, own a property that, as you say, you own a place that's $270,000. I don't know what you could buy in New York City for $270,000. Mark, could you buy a parking spot for $270,000? So, that to me is the big hurdle, right? If you're going to go into a higher cost area, it may mean that you don't actually, maybe you rent. Maybe that's something that you consider. So now I've got all of these pieces together for you. And now you're saying, what do I do with this $100,000, right? That could come out of selling your rental property. And I think it's as boring as put in your brokerage account. Just get it working for you, because, there's no real reason for you to reinvest that in the real estate market, especially if you don't think you're going to stay in the area. And I think that you've got a good game plan here. I mean, how much money are you actually saving out of this $145,000 salary?
Well, including my employer contribution, I would say probably about 50 something thousand a year.
That's huge. It's huge. I mean, so I think that this probably will work for you. Just, your current asset level is great, for a woman in her early 40s. Because you're thinking about downshifting at 58, we have these gap years between that moment and the moment where you could actually qualify for Medicare. So some of the things that aren't going to go away in terms of cost would be health insurance, which you'd have to shoulder on your own unless you could get a job being more creative in a place that gives you health insurance. But you also have to obviously create a lifestyle that you can afford to live. And that might require some work. So I think that your goal right now, and for everyone listening, if you, like Anu, want to kind of call it quits early or change your mind about the way you're working, you need to build up a very big liquidity buffer. Okay, if you want to come on the air with us live, all you need to do is send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com, or if you're on our website, if you're on jillonmoney.com, click the contact button, tell us your question, and then say, I want to come on the air with you. Mark will do the rest. Okay, we'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. We're presented by LifeLock. LifeLock, let us help protect your identity. I am Jill Schlesinger, CBS News business analyst, certified financial planner. I am joined, but only to me, not to you guys, by Mark Talercio. He is the executive producer. He is also a certified financial planner. And we are here to kind of help hold your hand, coach you. Do you think coach is the right metaphor for us, Mark, that we're the coaches? Because a coaches can be tough on you if you screw up. Is that the right one? I think coach more than a trainer. I'm not sure. I have to think about that. Anyway, we're here to help guide you. And so if you've got a financial question, anything going on financially, I mean, anything, it can be your investments, it could be your retirement. It might be saving for college. It might be, should you start a new business? That's something to consider, right? Anything that has like any whiff of a financial implication. Estate planning, there's a good one. And tax planning, there's a good one. Let us know. We're here to help you out. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. If you're on our website, which you should be, jillonmoney.com, bookmark it right now. You can read, you can listen, you can watch, and you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Mark, how many signups do we have so far? We've got a good round number. Mark has done a phenomenal job with this. I want to put that out there publicly because he is the one who scours the world and says, here are, how many do we do? 5? The 5 things you need to know, right? And we 5 different things. Sometimes it's a link to a blog. Sometimes it's a clip of something. It's all there. So sign up for the weekly newsletter. It's free. It comes out on Fridays. It's a great way to go into the weekend. Okay. All right. Now let's do some emails. This is from Eric, who wants to talk about early retirement planning, and he wants to know if his plan is feasible. Eric is a podcast listener. Now, here's something great. I've had a podcast for a while called Jill on Money, but I'm starting a second podcast this week. It's so awesome. And so what you should do is wherever you get podcasts, you don't know where to get podcasts, Mark, what's the easiest way to just do it? I guess if you're an Apple person, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, there's a little icon for podcasts. And all you need to do is search for Eye on Money. That's our new show that we're launching on Tuesday the 8th. That's amazing. It's like, I can't do enough audio work. It'll be 2 podcasts and 1 radio show. Eye on Money with me, Jill Schlesinger. It's a CBS audio podcast production. All right. Eric has discovered our podcast during the pandemic. He says, I've really enjoyed it. All right. Here's what's going on with Eric. He and his wife are contemplating retiring early. They wanted a second opinion and third, because of Mark, on how feasible this is. Here's the details. Married couple of 18 years, no children, no desire to leave a legacy upon death. Okay. He's 51. Wife is 53. They're in good health. Expect to live into the mid-90s. Okay, here's the job situation. Eric says, I make $150,000 a year. I work for a small company which is struggling. They eliminated their 401k 2 years ago, and he took a pay cut 2 years ago as well. He says, at this point, I assume I could be unemployed as early as tomorrow. Yeesh. My ability to get another job anywhere near my current salary, it's highly unlikely. My network and skills have eroded over the course of the last 5 years. Oh, that's too bad. But you know what? He puts it out there. He says, in all honesty, my ambition to find another job is extremely low. He said, here's my plan. I'm going to ride it out, hope the company survives another year. Okay. So remember, he's 51. His wife owns a small business. She makes $100,000 a year. The lease on her business expires next summer. We've already decided she's going to exit the business at that time. All right. The job is mentally and physically taxing. She's burned out and would like to take a long rest after we exit the business. There's a small chance we could sell the business before then, but we're assuming we would not be able to. Okay, if we sell it, we're going to consider it gravy. She contributes to a simple IRA, and she's put in her $16,500 for 2021 already, and she's going to do the same for next year. Oh, Mark, are you trying to get me hate mail just by doing this one with their current net worth? Is that what you're trying to do? Their current net worth is $6 million. It's actually just under $6.6 million. But let's see how they got this. They have a primary, so their house is included in there. They've got a $750,000 house. It's got a mortgage balance $262, a 30-year mortgage at 2.5%. They've got rental property also, $500,000 with no mortgage. They net $1,000 a month in income after all maintenance fees, taxes, etc. Oh my God, there's so much money. It's crazy. They've got $1 million in cash. I mean, online savings, checking, CDs. Pre-tax, $1.5 million of a 401k. Inherited IRA, 70 grand, which will be withdrawn by 2030. Traditional IRA, 419,000. Rollover, 93,000. And that simple IRA, his wife's plan, 483,000. Post-tax, Roth, 166. A brokerage account, about $1.5 million spread over index and some actively managed funds. Individual stocks, 340 grand, 20 large cap stocks. Social Security estimate, they're going to plan on taking it at 70, 55,000. They need $132,000 a year to live. Includes health insurance that we would purchase through the Affordable Care Act. Okay, so wow, that's a lot to digest. So let's digest this, Mark, with a break, and then let's come back and see if a $6.5 million nest egg will do them. I'm kind of guessing it will, but let's go through the questions anyway. You're listening to Jill on Money, and if you've got a question, you don't need $6.5 million. You can have 6.5 cents. We don't really care. Send us your questions. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com, and we'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And if you've got a financial question, you have anything that is remotely financial on your mind, maybe it's investments, maybe it's taxes, maybe it's retirement, I don't care. Give us a holler. It's Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Before we went to a break, we had Eric, who basically is a $6 million man. He and his wife are the $6.5 million couple. Got $6.6 million, he and his wife, and he wants to know, can he retire? The answer is yes. You can retire whenever you want. You're in good shape. You're really good shape. He first wants to know if they should do $1,500 a month for health and dental insurance is reasonable for them. I think that is. Yes, they have enough assets to support for the rest of their lives. I don't think they need long-term care insurance. He asked about that. You can self-insure for sure. Current asset allocation. 60 stock, 20 bond, 20 cash. Is that reasonable? He wants to hang on to the rental property. It's very easy to manage, and he's got a great tenant. The brokerage and after-tax money, there's a lot of capital appreciation. All right. Does it make sense for us to do Roth conversions when we retire and have very little earned income? Mark, would you like to answer that? Because I knew that was where you were going to go first. So imagine that they retire, and let's just say that they are 52. Let's just see. They're 52 and 54 next year, right? And they retire, and they basically have no income. Would you like them to do some conversions, Mark? I presume your answer is? Yeah, they got some money in cash. I think they should do some before. I mean, first of all, they're going to have no income. They are going to have big time required minimum distribution. So that's number one. So I think that it really, from my perspective, I think you have to, because even if, think about this, Mark, even if they did just like 20 grand, it would be they go to 80 grand. I think what they should do is convert. They've got to figure out how much money they need to really live on. He did say that they have that, I don't know if they're really going to spend all the money that they say they're going to spend, but he says $132,000 to live, right? So they're going to have to spend that $1 million that is in the that's in the cash account, right? Because we figure, remember, they first have to get to a place where they can start tapping their retirement accounts. So that would be 59 and a half. Then their next big hurdle will be Medicare. So I'm really thinking about this as, it's a 10-year plan. And so they're going to need some of this money that they have. And unfortunately, if I were them, I wouldn't put one more dime into retirement. I wouldn't even have don't worry about it. Your wife does not need to put money into retirement. You should be stockpiling cash. And that cash is going to be needed because you need this $132,000. It's a little bit less than that, but you're going to need, because you've got the rental income, but you still are going to need a lot of money. You're going to need $100,000 a year from this account. So that gets you through your 10 years. So you can't convert that much unless there's some way for you to gather a little bit more money. Now, maybe you gather money because she retires in a year and she doesn't put money in retirement. Maybe you keep working. Maybe you could keep working for another year or two, but you need more cash, right? You do have enough money to retire. It's just that it is all taxable in that pile of money. I guess the other thing that I would do, just me, one other thing you can do is I would sell some of those assets that have huge gains in your brokerage account when you retire. Let's take some of the money out of there because you can stay in the 0% long-term capital gains rate. So up to $80,000. So probably what I would do first and foremost, what do you think about this as a plan, Mark? Let's say they retire. They got $1 million that's in cash. The first thing I would do is I would sell up to $80,000 in that brokerage account, and I'd use that to live on for the beginning. In fact, I think that's what I would do for the first couple of years, even more important than the conversions. I think I would just start stockpiling cash and paying 0% capital gains. While you're still in the 0% tax bracket, let's try really hard to get as much money out of those investments at the 0% long-term capital gains rate. That's what I would do. But otherwise, I think he says it's interesting. He says, the plan is to retire next summer, chill out to the following spring, sell the primary residence, and bank the tax-free gain. So that's fine, but I would definitely also try to take money out of the account and make sure that you're getting that 0% capital gains. Then he says they're going to travel abroad and domestically for 2 years. Then they're going to settle in a lower cost of living town because they live in the Northeast and it's expensive, and buy a modest home in a town we like. Then low-paying, stress-free part-time jobs. Think dog walker, part-time bartender. So some income flowing to cover happy hours and such. Now, Mark, how do you like the plan as Eric lays it out? Mark says he's jealous. And you know what? I think it works. But I think you'd be really silly not to actually take advantage of 0% capital gains, even if you are going to do the house thing. Okay? Good. All right. It's Jill on Money. And if you've got a financial question, you got an investment question, you got a retirement question, you want a little bit of a plan B, C, and D, we're here for you. It's Mark and Jill, the Mark and Jill Show. It's Jill on Money. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com is our email address. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you have any questions that are remotely financial, if you've got a little question, a query about something going on for you, maybe it's a tax question, maybe it's an education funding question. We just celebrated 529 Day. Maybe it's something else that's going on. We'd love to help you get to the place you want to go. That's our goal here. We want to help you get where you want to go. Very easy. Send us those questions at askjill@jillonmoney.com. Okay, this is from Beth, who asks, when I convert $30,000 from my traditional IRA to my Roth IRA, should I have taxes withheld? I pay estimates, and my CPA took that into consideration when she calculated them. Should I convert this all at one time? Should I do this in increments? Thank you. Well, if your CPA is going to it has already taken that into account, then don't worry about it. You're paying those estimates, so you don't want to withhold. But remember, you're going to have to pay the tax that's due, and I hope you have the money outside of your retirement account to make that payment. That's number one. It won't be due till next spring, right, when next tax season. Now, the question about converting all at once may have to do with your tax bracket. Maybe if you could do it all at once, if it keeps you in the same tax bracket. I don't know what the details are, but that's usually what people want to do. They want to actually say, okay, I'm going to do 30,000 because I stay in let's say the 22% tax bracket, or, I stay in the 12% tax bracket. That's usually why people will keep it at that point. But don't worry in terms of the doing it, timing the market or anything. Just do it. If you can stay in the tax bracket, spread it out. If you think this is popping you into a different tax bracket, maybe it's 15 one year and 15 the other, but it doesn't sound like that. Good that your accountant helped you with this and that you're going to make those estimates. All good. Remember, gang, when you convert your retirement account into Roth assets, you owe the tax due. And to make the conversion work, you really have to have the money outside of that retirement account. Otherwise, it doesn't work so great. Okay? If you've got a Roth conversion question, one of our favorites, give us a holler. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. If you're on our website, JillOnMoney.com, you can just hit the contact button, tell us what's going on, let us know if you want to come on the air live. And while you're on the website, just do us a favor, sign up for the free weekly newsletter. It's right there. And don't forget to subscribe to the new podcast. It's called Eye on Money with me, Jill Schlesinger. Okay, we'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here to try to help you make sense of the crazy number of financial decisions you need to make every single day, every month, every quarter. But, we can help you squeeze it down to maybe a core issue. Maybe we can establish a good baseline for you and get you on the right track. That's what we try to do here. We really are trying to make sure that you have other people in your life to help you get where you want to go. And if you want to take a step beyond a radio show, well, then you can check out our sponsor. Our sponsor is Facet Wealth. Now, Facet Wealth, it's not like the usual kind of financial service company, because at Facet Wealth, they provide flat fee, conflict-free planning. And the planning comes from certified financial planners, the ones who are fiduciaries, who have to put you first. So they provide this kind of planning. You get a dedicated advisor, and they do so without imposing a wealth or an account minimum. Facet meets you where you are. It's flat fee, accessible to everyone. And I think that's kind of cool. So go check out facetwealth.com. That's their website. Now, we are so lucky because we have a long list of friends of this show who come on periodically and give us some, we have our tax guy, Ed Slott. We have our year-end planning guy. That's Michael Goodman. And, what's kind of cool is that Michael Goodman, he's also a person who owns a small business. And so I was working with him to try to come up with an idea around how to do something for this thing called the Dell Small Business Podference. They were doing kind of all different podcasts, and they were sponsoring them. And I said, well, I have a friend who owns a small business. I think I should interview him about his experience after the pandemic and what happened. And so that's what we did. And it was really instructive. So if you own a small business, or if you are considering a new business that you want to launch, a lot of people figuring that out after the pandemic, Check this out. This is my interview with Michael Goodman. He is the president and founder of Wealthstream Advisors. So let's get into it. Michael Goodman on the program. Let's start with a couple of questions for you. And I'm going to talk to you first as a small business owner yourself, because you've got a thriving investment management and financial advisory firm. So talk a little bit about what happened a year ago or more than a year ago when things were shut down. What occurred first and foremost in your business?
Yeah, we had like a kind of a double impact. But the first thing that we focused on, of course, was everybody's safety and health. And that meant having to leave our office. We have a pretty tight-knit culture. Everybody kind of gets along really well, likes each other in our company, and we enjoy working together and collaborating. And we had to immediately go remote. So that was probably the first, the most important thing that happened. The second thing that happened was we work in the financial markets. We help our clients and our client families manage their financial affairs in their lives and their financial plans. And the idea that all of a sudden there was this big question mark as to what their wealth looked like and that it was, dropping rather precipitously made us have to jump into action and serve our clients rather rapidly.
How many people work in the company now?
19.
How were you set up to manage this business remotely? Was that something that you had contemplated previous to the pandemic? Like, how did this work? Actual like nuts and bolts. What happened?
Fortunately, we've always embraced technology, and having worked through 9/11 and being displaced from my office then, and then again in Hurricane Sandy, we definitely built in some technology. I would say, though, we never in our wildest dreams thought we would use it to the degree that we used it during the pandemic, that's for sure. But we did have a lot of the things already in place. Actually, we had everything in place. We just weren't using maybe some of the things as robustly as we started to use them.
Give me an example of that.
I got two really good examples. The first one, which most people have already, is sort of a VoIP telephone system where you're not, copper line, and you have internet technology and you can really run your phone through your laptop. Pretty powerful. And that was great. It was like we were basically all able to just basically answer our phones and transfer calls, et cetera. Sounds rather mundane, and most people are on that technology, but never thought we would use it the way we did.
All right. What was the second thing that you had invested in technology-wise?
Yeah, the second thing was a low-cost investment for us. And we used this once again. We started it probably, 6 months before the pandemic, and we got a messaging system. We used Microsoft Teams. A lot of other people use Slack, but we used Microsoft Teams. And that was really powerful because in the office, you can message somebody, but, we're a pretty small organization. You can kind of just stand up and say, hey, what's going on with this? But now we were able to quickly message each other, and you can also have that on your phone. So if you step away from your desk and you need somebody, it's just basically like text messaging, except it's so much more robust. And we use that for a whole bunch of cool stuff, including, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit, is sort of dealing and maintaining culture.
Had you used video with your clients previously? You have clients all over the country and some all over the world. So had you used that previously?
Yes, and that's the big thing that everybody's talked about, right? Zoom, which is why I went to these other two things. But yes, absolutely. We did some video conferencing. We do have about a third of our clients outside of the New York City metro area that we would speak with. And it just wasn't used a lot. Some clients still just preferred a phone call or so, but all of a sudden, a month or two into the pandemic, everybody's like, okay, let's Zoom. So we've been having much more engaging meetings with some clients that are outside the New York City metro area than we had in the past.
And why do you think that is? Do you think people were just lonely or they were freaked out? I mean, once the initial stock market drop occurred, was it really just about feeling connection, do you think?
Definitely. I think it was not only feeling connection with somebody who we, advises the way we do, but we were all kind of mostly at home. If people were on the conservative side and cautious or had some potential health issues, they were not going out of their house for periods of time. So the idea of just even having that kind of connection is surely something that's going to make people feel better, whether it's relating to their financial affairs or not.
How do you think that these technological investments that you made that got you through the pandemic, what do you think is going to happen post-pandemic? Like, how do you imagine your re-entry into a physical office? Because I know that that's something that's important to you, but what is the legacy of some of these things? What will persist going forward, do you think?
Well, I believe they'll all persist. I just hope that they'll become less dominant. There'll be tools in your tool belt. We're all going to know how to work them a lot better. Let's be clear. I've gotten much better at using Zoom than I was beforehand. And frankly, Zoom has gotten better at Zoom. So it's good that this happened in a way from that technology standpoint. I personally look forward to them all being around. I just think that, if they're a little less dominant, we get back to some more face-to-face or other traditional means of communication. That will be great too.
Okay, we'll get back to our interview with Michael in just a minute. If you've got a question about starting a business, let us know. All you have to do, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. And we are in the middle of an interview with my friend Michael Goodman. Michael is the founder and owner of a company called Wealthstream Advisors. They do full-on financial planning, for different kinds of people. It's really been interesting to become friends with him and hear about how he navigated all the different turns of the pandemic. And so this is an interview where we really did focus on Michael's business ownership rather than his financial planning expertise, although we'll do a little bit of that. I think what was really instructive here is that, as a small business owner, there were things that happened prior to the pandemic, good decisions that Michael and others like him made, like investing in technology and making sure that you could have access to your employees in different ways. But obviously, no one planned to test out all of those investments overnight, essentially. I remember when I talked to Michael early on in the pandemic, the first thing I was doing with him was I used him to help calm the viewers at CBS. We interviewed him for a Sunday morning piece about the market volatility. But in this part of our interview with Michael, we're talking about what he learned during the pandemic as an operator of a small business, what he learned as a manager, what he himself needed to do to cope. So here's more of our interview with Wealthstream Advisors, Michael Goodman. What did you learn as a business owner in this period? What are some of the takeaways for you in running your own business that you think were important lessons? And you've owned this business for how long? 20 years, 20 something years?
25 this year,
wow.
Actually.
Oh, yeah. It's an anniversary party. So, what do you take out of this experience?
I think there's a couple of things. We all have to remember that there's going to be lows. There's going to be challenging times. It's very easy to sort of just hang on to the status quo or the good times, but we're going to have some really big challenges. It's a little analogous to the stock market, if you will. For the most part, it's mostly going up, but every now and then it goes down, and it goes down very quickly, and it can get scary when that happens. So you have to remember that and not to get put off by that. I think those are the times where you really get an opportunity to go back to your core values, really think about what you're doing and work hard at it. So once again, just remember that there'll be the lows. The second thing I think you have to learn is that you have to be on top of your personal business financial plan. You should be doing budgets, let's just say, projections. It doesn't have to be anything overly sophisticated, but you should have a sense all the time of sort of what my plan is for the next couple of years. And you should also be planning for some bad things to happen. Not that they will, hopefully, but what if happens if all of a sudden my revenue drops by a third? What does that mean? How do we survive that? Where do we need to nip and tuck, et cetera? So you should do your own business financial planning. And one of the key tenets of that is cash is king, especially today with interest rates being so low. It's so frustrating to hold on to cash. But what people don't realize is that the interest they're earning is not in the form of dollars. The interest they're earning is the form of security to know that if something goes wrong, that they can survive that time period.
It's so interesting because I think that a lot of people are now turning to this idea of, you know what, I want to start a small business. I just saw the small business formation numbers are up huge. I mean, it's like a 40% increase than from like where we were before the pandemic, people starting businesses. If you are an existing business and you've just realized like yours, Michael, that you can run a business remotely, how does that change the negotiations you have with potential office space? Are you thinking like, you know what, I don't need any more office space. I'm done. I mean, how are you approaching this?
Yeah, well, I think it's different for different people. I'm personally a big fan of for our kind of a company, of being in the office. And ironically, our company lease was up this summer. So we were going to be going into negotiations anyway at this time. Some people say to me, oh, you're really lucky. You got to sign a lease and negotiate in this environment. You probably got a good deal. And yes, we did. But we also don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just, I believe it'll be good and I'm optimistic about that. But we made a pretty big commitment for the next 10 years.
So you paid rent this whole time that you were not in the office?
Yes.
The same amount, or did they give you a discount?
They did not give us a discount.
Oh,
We didn't ask for a discount. We were doing fine. Our business was okay, and we felt it our moral obligation to pay our rent if we're okay.
I mean, you're such a good guy, Michael. You are. Okay, so let's shift a little bit. We are often asked about the following question, which is, what is the formation of this company? Should I be an LLC? Should I be a C Corp? Should I be an S Corp? How do you make this determination? And then I have a follow-up on that.
There's a lot of factors that come into place when making that decision. I would say that there are some general rules of thumb around this, and that is you're going to be the only owner, and you're not in a business that's litigious in any way, either a sole practitioner and just doing a Schedule C on your personal tax return. It might be the simplest and easiest and least expensive way. Or if you're willing to take some incremental cost, an LLC is a good thing to have if it's going to be just you also. The thing you need to be aware of with this, you have to get some counsel from a tax person, a CPA that's in your area, is that there's federal rules when it comes to how these things work, and there are state rules when it comes to how these things work. And in some places, there are even more local municipal rules. So for example, here in New York City, you have an additional taxing agency, and an LLC in New York City has some detriments to it that you need to be aware of. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but you just need to be aware of these different layers of costs and or challenges.
So let me just follow up. The question actually came in via social, which is there any insights on the best way that I should convert from an LLC to a C Corp in order to take advantage of QSBS designation? What is this QSBS exemption?
Yeah, so qualified small business stock is an exemption in the tax law that allows you, when you exit or sell your shares, to shelter up to $10 million of gain.
What?
Yep.
I love that.
Yep. But there are some very significant rules or facts that you need to make sure you stick to get that exemption. And I would recommend that you definitely work with not just a CPA, but a CPA who knows qualified small business stock, because there are some nuances to that. Being a C Corp is one of them.
When your clients, your financial planning and investment management clients, are asking you small business questions, it must be quite handy to have that little CPA in your back pocket, isn't it?
It is. It is. One of the things that's interesting about being a CPA is that you learn how much there is to know. And that's what makes a CPA exam so challenging. It's literally like phone books worth of information. But if you're not continuously using the information on page 7,423 on a daily basis, and the laws changed all the time. What really a good CPA is, one who knows to ask a lot of questions. They might not always have the answers, but they can research that or talk to somebody who does. And qualified small business stock is a great example of something where you need to make sure that you really seek out somebody who understands all the intricacies.
We'll get back to our interview with Michael Goodman in just a second. If you've got a financial question, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. If you are on our website, if you're on the jillonmoney.com website, all you need to do is click the contact button. Don't forget to tell us if you would like to join us on the air. Mark will do the rest. Okay, we'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are going to conclude our interview with Michael Goodman. He is the president and founder of Wealthstream Advisors. You know, he joined us for this interview not to give his usual fantastic financial advice, but to help us become better small business owners, managers. But, you know, honestly, if you're about to launch a small business, or if you work in a small company, you run the company like a small business, you can take a lot of what he's offering and incorporate it into your own work life. In this part of the interview, we are going to tackle one of the big questions, the best retirement plan options for small businesses. Here's the conclusion of our interview with Michael Goodman. So another question we got is a really good one. The question is about, for small businesses, what are some of the best retirement plans that I can implement? I presume this means that somebody's moved beyond sole proprietor and done their IRA or Roth IRA, and now they're in that mode of like, okay, now I have some money and I can fund retirement. What are some of the retirement plan options that are available for small businesses? And even if it's just a single operator of that small business, it just happens to be cranking.
Yeah, so there are some real good juicy options there now. It's gotten a little simpler over time too. But I would say that the two best options, generally speaking, are going to be a solo 401k, which will allow you to have sort of this profit sharing plan element to the plan, which allows you to put away a percentage of your profit for the year and do a 401k piece. And some custodians even allow you to do a Roth 401k in these solo 401ks. So that is something that is definitely a great option for most companies. If you have a company that's really doing well, significant profits, and you're over the age of, let's say, 40-ish, let's say, and you don't have a significant amount of employees, low employees, maybe no employees, you can do what's called a defined benefit plan, which will allow you to put away substantially more money. The max in the solo 401k that we were just talking about is somewhere in the 50s, let's say.
58.
Yeah, thank you very much. And a defined benefit plan, now we're talking about potentially being able to deduct in excess of $200,000 off of your tax return to put into a retirement plan.
Tell me what would happen if Mark were my employee and I have a solo 401k. What happens?
Well, you'd have to have a regular 401k at that point. Solo is just if you're the only one. So I should have clarified that earlier, perhaps. But you'd have a regular 401k. It's
right.
A little more annoying now because you have a layer of expense and a layer of complexity to the plan. A little bit, there's what's called testing that you have to do each year to make sure the plan's in compliance. But the good news is the government's given us what's called a safe harbor option. So if you do this for the safe harbor, which I'll explain in a second, you'll pass all your testing. And the way to do that, to meet the safe harbor requirements, is either to A, make a 3% contribution of the employee's salary So in other words, if they were making $100,000, you'd put in $3,000 into their plan for them. It's not a match. You have to do it. And for all the employees. And then you can put in whatever you want. There's no testing for yourself. Or you could do a match.
What if I decide, seems like a pain in the neck. I don't want to do all that testing stuff. If I have a SEP IRA for myself, and let's just say I have, 3 employees, can I allow them to be part of that? Or is that a simple IRA? Like what happens here? I've kind of forgot what the choices are. If I have, let's say 5 or fewer employees, like what are some of the options in that case?
A simple IRA is a great option. The issue with the SEP IRA is the SEP IRA is a employer plan. Only the employer is putting money into the SEP IRA. The simple 401k or the simple IRA, that allows people to put their own payroll monies in as well. So if you have employees that want to make contributions, you're going to need a plan other than a SEP IRA.
Okay, got it. I'm going to ask this question. No one asked this, but I find it quite interesting. How do you know when to call it quits? Like, how do you know when the business is, let's say you've got a business, it's got crushed by COVID, right? A restaurant or whatever. And I'm sure that there are many people who are like, well, I could borrow money from my retirement account, or I could refinance my house and do all that. How do you know when it's time to just call it quits and be done?
I think there's 2 factors. There's the math and then there's the non-math. On the math side, you have to make sure you're aware of your own personal financial plan. What is this business costing you in the future? What are you losing in the future for your ability to, at one point, be financially independent and have enough money not to have to work? If you're really crushing that other goal, you have to raise your hand and say, I'm out, because the long-term ramifications are too steep. Then there's the non-financial stuff. So on the one hand, there's the stress factor. And I think that a lot of people don't recognize how much stress it is to run a small business. There's a lot of joy also, and some people just are vehemently independent and don't want to work for somebody else, so they're willing to have that stress. So you got to factor that in too.
I mean, I think that it's fair to say that everyone felt stress in different ways. You were actually in an industry that got hit early, but then was thriving. So how did you manage your own mental health in the period? Because I think it can be very lonely to be the boss.
Absolutely. So first of all, super stressful, probably 2 weeks of just super stress. And I think this was a unique stress. I've been through many market downturns before. That's not necessarily what stressed me in this instance, although of course that's stressful. The stress here was that it was a pandemic, and that nobody had a playbook for that. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew how it was going to turn out. And that was a little darker. No questions asked.
You were so outwardly calm, and you really seemed very chill. Like did you go Zen? How did you get there?
Well, I truly believe that we would get there. So you have to create your North Star and focus on that and that's what's going to do it for you. And one of the things I did probably in day 9 of this pandemic was every morning when I would go from my bedroom to my office, because we were all home at that point in time, I would spend 10 to 15 minutes of just positivity. And for me, I would pull out different books that I had, one is The Daily Stoic that I'll read, or something else about positive. And I would read some sort of meditation kind of a thing and make sure that I focused on, okay, this is where I am. I'm going to start from here and I'm just going to get through the day. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to stay positive. And it really made a big difference.
All right. If you've got a small business, if you've got a question about retirement, if you want to start a business, we want to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And we are here to take the mystery out of your financial life. And we do that by answering your questions. So you're part of this. You make us better. All right. So if you have a question, send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. That's askjill@jillonmoney.com. Or if you're on the website, jillonmoney.com, just hit the contact button and we will get the message right away. All right. What else do I need to tell you? Oh, we are broadcasting this hour from the Capital One Bank virtual studios. Capital One, this is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? I know everyone's sort of thinking like, what's in my virtual wallet? Maybe, but could be just a real wallet. Every so often people actually, they have dollar bills in their wallets. They do. It still works that way. All right. This is a question from Lisa, who writes, "Hi, Jill. I love listening to you and Mark." See that, Mark? By the way, if you subscribe to the new podcast, if you subscribe to Eye on Money, there'll be more of Mark's voice. So stay tuned. Just go get it wherever you get your podcasts. Okay. Lisa and her husband are 61. They sold their home last summer, and not knowing where to move, they found a home to rent in Wisconsin, and they signed a 2-year lease. She says, "I feel like I'm on vacation every day. The area is close to prairies and the lake." Wow, that's nice. "We had always planned on downsizing so that we could have a mortgage less than $100,000 at retirement of 65. We would still like to buy. However, the market's crazy. We've lost a few offers we've made. I have fear of missing out a lot right now. We feel that prices and interest rates will continue to rise, and we will just have to pay more in 2022. Our rent is $2,200 a month. Our budget for a home is $350,000 to $400,000. We have $200,000 from the sale of our home. Now we're thinking we should conserve our cash and just put 20% down. Of course, this means that we'll have a mortgage long into retirement. Are we missing out by not buying now? Should we just wait until our lease is up and maybe just keep renting for $2,200? Should we keep our cash and have a mortgage payment into retirement? We have $230,000 in cash, $1.1 million in pre and post tax retirement. So the lion's share of that is in pre-tax. They're going to receive $2,200 each at age 65. Mark, what are you thinking about this? Mark just turned it all around to make it about himself. He says, "I'm just glad I'm not in the market right now." I'll tell you what, I think I'm inclined to just keep renting for a while. Yes, interest rates could rise. This is true. And they probably will rise. But the housing market is completely out of whack right now. And frankly, maybe it's just be renters for a while and see where you go. And maybe renting would be better for you. It seems to me that $2,200 a month in rent is pretty good. And I don't know how much money you need to live on. That was one thing you left out. Let's look at this, right? Because remember, so they've got $1.1 million and probably about 3/4 of that is pre-tax. So they're going to have, those dollars are going to have to come out and pay tax on them. Are you guys working still? This is interesting. So here's a question. So 2 things. One is, you sold your home. Are you retired or not? Are you still working? And if you are, what are you making? So that's one thing. Number 2, how long are you going to keep working if you are working? And number 3, what is your need in terms of beyond that mortgage? What is the amount of money you guys need to spend? I am inclined to keep renting. That's where I am right now, because I think getting into this market, if you don't have to and you can take your time, is fine. I understand the idea that everybody's feeling total FOMO, that you really do have a fear of missing out. On the other hand, that's just getting you deeper into the problem, right? So I need a little more information. Can you help me out, pretty please? Okay. I know. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that when you have the the fear, that fear factor that's coming up, you got to take yourselves off the hook. You really do. You have to try to give yourself a little wiggle room and say, all right, even if interest rates were to rise, I still might net be better off renting. Oh, my mother was worried. She said she thought that the person who owned her apartment was going to sell it. Thankfully, no, we have a 2-year lease. She goes, I would have signed a 5-year lease. I'm like, Mom, you're in your 80s. You don't sign 5-year leases in your 80s. She goes, oh, thanks. All right. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. We've got one more segment left before we close out the program. So send that note off right away. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. If you are on our website, JillOnMoney.com, bookmark it. Just put a little bookmark on there, and then you can go back to us anytime you're surfing for other information. Just do that. JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. Just got a little bit of time before the end of the program. So let me do one last email here. And the subject is a debt negotiation service. So Olga writes that she signed up with a company that's called Start New Financial. It's a good name for a company that wants to start new and extract money from you. But let's see what Olga has to say about this. How do I know if they're legit? How will I not harm myself by letting them manage my finances? Here's the thing. I think these debt negotiation products and companies, they're not worth it. You know, if you go into, like, I'm in the Better Business Bureau website, okay? The first thing that comes up, which says, and these are customer reviews from the Better Business Bureau. Please cancel my account. I can't believe you are asking about the security clearance for my work. There's a long thing that basically says that these were terrible people. And then there was one that was at a personable and a knowledgeable. It's like pretty much every 0-star or 1-star review on Better Business Bureau, they throw up a little 5-star review, but it's mostly pretty crappy. So here's what I want you guys to know. Number one, you don't need debt consolidation. You don't need debt negotiation. Do it yourself. You don't need it. It's better if it comes from you. So that's, my 2 cents, Olga, is cancel the service, don't give them any money, and start negotiating yourself, because you're going to be the best advocate for you. That's really what I think. I know that it sounds great. Start new financial, right? It sounds great, but you can start yourself. All right. Well, thanks so much for listening. And a reminder, if you are just dying for more content from us, we have a new podcast. It is launching on Tuesday. It's called Eye on Money with me, Jill Schlesinger, the Eye on Money podcast from the CBS Audio Network. We're dropping episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts. That could be Apple or Spotify or Stitcher or Odyssey or Google Play, wherever you can. Find us. It's called Eye on Money. And we just want to thank you so much for listening. Our music is composed by Joel Goodman. Mark Talercio is our executive producer extraordinaire. And we want to remind you that it is still important for you to try to do something nice for someone else today. We'll talk to you next week.